Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Joanna, and welcome back to Rare Connection. Since this episode is airing during Rare Disease Awareness Month, it's worth remembering that there are over 10,000 rare diseases affecting about 30 million Americans. Nearly 1 in 10 people individually care. The nearly 1 in 10 individuals but collectively powerful. Uh, Today, we're focusing on spinal muscular atrophy, or SMA, a rare genetic and progressive neuromuscular disease that affects about 1 in 10,000 births, roughly 1 in 50 people carrying the SMA gene. SMA happens when the body can't produce enough SMN protein, which is essentially for keeping motor neurons alive. Without it, muscle strength and endurance decline, affecting things like mobility, feeding, swallowing, and in some cases, breathing. But its impact to remember SMA does not affect intelligence. There are multiple FDA approved treatments today, including gene therapy and earlier diagnosis, especially through newborn screening. It makes a major difference in outcomes. And to help us understand what living with SMA actually looks like beyond the medical terms, we have a special guest, Candace, who is diagnosed in childhood and has built an incredible career shaped by leadership, advocacy, and accessibility work. We'll learn about her lived experience, her early life in the entertainment industry, and work as the founder of I Am Abled Incorporated. So, Candace, for listeners who are meeting for you for the first time, can you share can you share when you were diagnosed with spinal muscular atrophy and when those early years and what those early years were like for you?
Hi, yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's definitely an honor to be here. And for me, I was diagnosed with SMA at a very, very young age. I would say 18 months old is, I believe, the time when my parents told me that was the official diagnosis. Um, and I think from what my parents tell me, um, realizing, that I was growing up and, I was meeting all my benchmarks. I was meeting my height benchmarks, my growth benchmarks, my development benchmarks. But then around, when children are supposed to start walking and crawling, my mother and father noticed immediately something was off. And thankfully, to my mother and father's constant, resilience and to looking into what that is and, advocating on my behalf, they finally got to a neurologist that knew it right away. Oh, this is SMA. And I was quickly diagnosed. And I just remember life didn't really change that much after that. I still had a very fun, very quote unquote, normal childhood. Um, I don't think I noticed I was different until I hit pre-K.
Hmm.
And for others that don't know, pre kindergarten. Um, that was when I noticed, oh, I'm a little different than all the other kids. I walk different. I had like a different gait of how I walked, almost similar to the way a penguin will walk because of how my spine was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very easy to fall, get off course. And that's when I noticed, oh, I have something different.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first introduction to what life as a disabled person would be.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I went to started matriculating through school. And pre-K, I started getting the looks, and you got young kids, so it's just looks. You're still at the table sharing food and all of that, but it's looks at that point. But then when I started going into first and second and third grade, then you kind of get the questions, and then questions become bullying. So I would say very early on, early 90s, I experienced a lot of bullying, a lot of what kids would call cruel treatment, getting, pushed, knocked over. And I don't know, for something in me, maybe it was my home life. I had great parents, great family. It never really, I never really got down on it. I mean, obviously, I would go home and be sad, but I never told my mom like I never wanted to go back to school, or I just said, okay, well, the kids were mean to me today. They wouldn't let me play with them. So that was my first introduction to you got to have tough skin. You're going to have to learn how to ignore the noise, and you got to find your tribe. So even in, elementary, I got picked on a lot and I got bullied a lot, but I also got great friends. I had a couple that were just like, I could go to them and we could just be friends. And it wasn't how different I was. It was, oh my God, did you see, Janet Jackson on TV last night? Or did you watch Michael Jackson on TV? I was just a kid. So, you got to find the people that you can just be yourself around. So
Mm-hmm.
those were like early stages of me kind of navigating my disability. And all this time I'm walking. I might be walking with a walker. Back in those days, I had like a larger stroller for if I couldn't walk far distances, I would get in, the stroller. But I still maintained a high level of independence by walking.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I'd say maybe around 10, I was at my grandmother's house and I had like a freak accident, which I was surprised by. I was sitting on my grandmother's porch, and it's like a wrought iron and wood porch bench. And for some reason, my one of my legs was wrapped around the iron foot. And when my baby cousin came over, he's like 1 or 2 years old. He comes running down the porch and comes to grab me and hug me, and I bend down. And this is the first time where I'm noticing how weak I am. That he pulls me down. A 1 or 2 year old like is pulling me down, and my leg gets caught, and I break my leg into two places. And I had
Wow.
to get put in a cast that was from my like upper thigh all the way down to my toes. And because of the SMA, I didn't have the capabilities to hop or jump. That wasn't something I was able to do, so I couldn't use crutches. And they didn't have those little scooter chairs that they do now. So the only option was crutches or bed rest. And I'm a 10-year-old kid, So at that point, I'm bed rested for 8 months. And no one explained to neither my parents or me that because of my SMA, me being bed rested for 8 entire months of no movement, that muscle completely gone, atrophied. And when they took the cast off, I was no longer able to walk. And I think that I think I was around 11 years old, maybe around this time, and it hadn't sunk in at the time. The doctor and my parents are, kind of freaking out, and I'm just like, okay, well, maybe I just need more PT, or, maybe I need to rest it some more. And so
Mm-hmm.
my parents are like, okay, well, we'll just go back. And I'm happy that that happened when I was a child, that it wasn't fully registering what was happening. I kind of just went with the flow as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, the walker became a wheelchair. And eventually, I just, the wheelchair was now the way I got around. And that was a defining moment for me because now I don't live in a world where ramps are around everywhere. I mean, you got to remember this is like 1992,
Mm-hmm.
1993. The ADA had just been signed a couple years back, and it definitely wasn't being enforced. And I lived in a major metropolitan city like Los Angeles, so I can only imagine, what it would have been like elsewhere. So that was my first introduction to, okay, now you're really different. You are no longer walking when everyone else is walking. Now you can't get into certain stores. Now you can't go to people's houses. And it just changed everything. Um, and so, yeah, I'd say around 11, 12 years old is when it no longer was just, I walked a little different. It was now, I am fully disabled. That's when it really hit me.
Mm-hmm. So, were you ever on seizure medications?
I'm sorry?
Were you? This is different off question off what I know sent you, but were you ever off? Were you ever on seizure medications?
Seizure?
Right, because sometimes seizures. I know this is mostly spinal stuff, but can seizures can affect the medications can affect your balance.
No, I never was.
No. So it's a
Yeah.
lot of things. A lot of people will. I know I'm on seizure medications, and I used to walk like a drunk person because of the seizure medications. So
Oh,
I was
wow.
pulled over by the cops a lot because of it, and so that's um part of my rare disease.
Oh.
And and um what were some of the earlier symptoms or challenges you remember noticing as a child?
Um, as a child, I just remember going in stores and everything. I knocked over everything because my wheelchair was so big and bulky. I remember going up to, office buildings and my mom having to struggle with the wheelchair and the stairs because, like I said, early 90s, this is still brick and mortar steps and it's not a lot of elevators, not a lot of ramps. Curb cuts, were not very common. So I remember she having to move. I remember being in an upstairs apartment and, prior to me being in the wheelchair, stairs were still a problem, but I was able to navigate them with the help of my parents. But I remember at that point, we had to move downstairs and we still stayed in the building, but I remember realizing, oh, this is because of me. We
Mm-hmm.
have to move down here because of me. And so it just changed everything.
Mm-hmm. Again, hard not to compare, but I used to be in a wheelchair myself, and it's can be scary if you have to go upstairs because they almost have to do a they almost have to pop a wheelie in order to get
Mhm.
you upstairs, and so it's and down also, but
Mhm. Which is interesting when you are living in the city like myself and you're looking for accessible housing. You have to factor in not every apartment are you going to get a ground floor apartment, or if the ground floor is actually ground floor, how many flights of stairs in an emergency. You have to do those mental gymnastics. And oftentimes I didn't have to do that before. When you're able to walk, that's not something you always have to think about.
mhm. It's also surprising that the ADA didn't play a role in this because Americans with Disability Act has been around for a while.
Well,
Uh,
they absolutely played a role. I mean,
it-
it was a couple months or a couple years after I was born that the ADA, was, really getting and going and, seeing some progress, but we're still seeing progress that needs to happen with the ADA. So, when I was a kid, imagine trying to fight and advocate for a new law and bill that came into existence, and people were not happy because that meant they had to put money toward renovating buildings and areas. They were not happy
yeah,
about that. So I
yeah.
think the ADA at the time was a blessing, but there was a lot of improvements that need to happen.
Mhm. There still are, unfortunately. Um, a lot of the older buildings can get away with it. I work as a caregiver, and if you go, I also noticed that here in Oregon, and that most of my clients are on a upper floor. I may have worked with one or two of them that are, and I've been doing this for 13 years, um, that are actually on bottom floor.
Yeah.
It never happens. I mean, I've had overweight clients that are really hard to lift. I have no idea what they would do if there's a fire, especially since they're right near the elevator. And
Yeah.
it's out of commission when there's a fire.
I mean, there's definitely protocol that, you pray that your local fire department remembers an emergency.
Yeah.
Um, but, living in the city or, in the urban society, apartments are what most people can afford. They can't afford to, have a
Mm-hmm.
traditional home or condo. So you make do and you try to keep yourself as safe as possible.
Mm-hmm. So, how did family navigate that your diagnosis at the time? Did you have access to a specialist or resources early on? Sounds like you did have access
Yeah,
to.
I had access to specialists. And like I said, that's completely to the testament and blessing of my parents who advocated. I can only imagine, healthcare in America and then being Black in America and with healthcare concerns. So I'm so thankful to my
Mm-hmm.
parents that said, we want the best for our child and we're going to pursue it, and made sure I saw the best specialists that they, could, get to. And as far as like my family and home life, that's one thing I can say. My parents, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, it was very, I never felt like I was different
Mm.
It was very much, I mean, I was different in the fact that I didn't have the same chores. I wasn't washing dishes like my cousins, but I um I definitely we all got the same treatment. We were all at our grandmother's house. Very much happy childhood. My parents made sure that yes, there was a side of my life that was raw, to
Mm.
say the least. I was in doctor's appointments constantly. A lot of my life, I missed a lot of schooling, with friends and, the social aspect of it because I was back and forth in, hospitals and doctor's visits, especially in the early beginning. But they also made sure to have a balance. So I was at the park. I was always at my cousin's house every Friday, watching our favorite 90s sitcoms and TV shows. Like those are my core memories playing with my cousins when the Mario Brothers came out on Nintendo and fighting over our Game Boys. Like those are my quintessential childhood memories. And so I don't look at my childhood with sadness. I look at it like with so much fun because my parents made sure I had a childhood.
Mm.
And for parents with kids with special needs, I cannot stress that enough. Your child has so much to deal with in the raw adult world of the medical world. So to offset that and make sure that they feel like a kid, making sure that they have those moments, it's so crucial.
Mm. It's nice that you had the supportive family. Not a lot of people have that.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm surprised at how much the doctors knew about it then, with it being a
I,
rare disease.
I'm shocked knowing as an adult today, I'm shocked
Mm.
that they knew so much about it then. But I believe that that's less about the doctors and more about just meeting the right person that was perfectly aligned with my story.
Mm.
Um, I think it was just purpose filled. For something so rare, I think it is very odd and kind of funny that they did know so much about it. So I think it's just unique to my story that that doctor, that specialist, was almost like an angel that was able to give my mom some guidance, give her something to focus on that can make sense of it. And a lot of parents, are just seeking that. So I was
Mm.
blessed to have that with my story.
Yeah. Most rare diseases are a paragraph in a textbook, so it's rare to find somebody who actually knows about them. Uh,
Yeah.
and oftentimes the patient is actually the one that informs the doctor. So it's kind of reverse psychology. And
I find
so,
myself doing that now. I find
yeah.
myself as adult doing that now during my medical history. I'm
Mm.
educating the doctors and I I have to remind myself to be patient because I'm like, why don't you know? This is not 1985 now. Like, why don't you know? But I
Yeah.
have to remind myself they're learning.
So, do you go to university?
Well, yes, I go to I I go to a university focused hospital, but I've been through so many medical places. I think if you ask anyone with chronic illness, they've probably been to every hospital within their city and local county. They could give you an A to Z cheat sheet. So
Mm.
I say I've been through the whole gamut.
Yeah. So, did it take you a while to get diagnosed, or was it?
No, diagnosis came at 18 months.
Yeah. So actually, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of people aren't diagnosed till 7. Uh,
Yeah. Mine came, like I said, to the blessing of my parents and that doctor.
yeah. But the normally it's the student doctors or the ones that are brand new, right, fresh out of medical school that know the most about these conditions because, like I said, they're a paragraph in a textbook.
Yeah, and I think also I was, I don't have anything to do with this, but the fact that I was born when I was, doctors, maybe back then there was maybe a focus on what they were studying. I know there maybe weren't as many student doctors in those times. You got to remember this is almost 30 plus years
Mm,
ago. So, now we're seeing a different evolution of healthcare and we're seeing more student doctors come in. And hopefully they're coming in and learning so that they can pass on that knowledge to the new class that they're, going to be, working in residence with. So
mm,
when I come across student doctors, I'm curious. I want to learn from them too. Like, what made you want to get into this?
mm,
Especially when I talk to my specialists, I'm always curious, what made you want to get into this? Because this is unique. I am unique. So what made you
mm.
want to focus in on that uniqueness?
Yeah, you have a great attitude about this.
Thank you. You got to when you go to the doctor's
Yeah,
office. Try to make it
yeah.
fun somehow.
So, SMA presents differently for everyone. How would you describe your type and how has it changed as you've gotten older?
I definitely say that I remember being a teenager and a doctor. I couldn't tell if he was a specialist or not, but he just said, one day, Candace, you're gonna wake up and it's just gonna feel completely different. You're just gonna wake up and something's just gonna be completely different. And I heard that and I said, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. And then it happened. I would turn 30 and I got really sick, like pneumonia, cold, and with SMA, it weakens your muscles. So getting pneumonia or getting a simple cold is, very life-threatening. So I got really, really sick and my recovery, it wasn't the same.
Mm,
And I said, oh, and it's funny because I reverted right back to that doctor. It's like my mind went in reverse, like a cassette tape. And I heard him say, Candace, one day you're going to wake up and it's going to feel different. And I said, oh, this is what he was talking about. And
mm,
ever since then, it has progressively been different,
mm-hmm,
progressively weaker. I remember being 18 and being able to put on a full face of makeup, being able to dress myself, transfer myself. My God, I was 18, moved out on my own, and I remember I could transfer myself from the bed to the chair.
wow.
And now I know, wow, I remember those days. And now at 40, I look good, I look young and fresh, but this body, she's tired, she's weak.
Mm-hmm,
Um, and so that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm constantly tired. I don't have the same energy. What I used to do, it takes longer. It's harder to do. And that's
mm,
just the reality. Breathing is sometimes harder. Eating is harder. Um, some things are just non-existent anymore, like transferring on my own. I
mm-hmm,
haven't done that in over 20 years. And that's not, I don't foresee that coming back. So I think it's also, I have little baby funerals, in life. Like, oh, that version of me is done.
mm-hmm,
I have to evolve into this new version of me. I know that can seem morbid, but that's just the truth. If you're living with a disease that is progressive, you have to constantly evolve. You know, people always say, "Well, I'm always changing and I'm always evolving." Have a chronic illness that progresses. That's constantly evolving. That's constantly waking up saying, "Okay, what's today going to be like? Can I do what I did yesterday? You know, am I going to be able to feed myself today, or am I going to have
Mm-hmm.
to wait until someone can help me?" So I'm constantly having to rapidly evolve and balance my emotions at the same time because I don't have time to freak out.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, freaking out at 40 is not the same as freaking out when you're 5 and having a tantrum. You have to balance your emotions. So I have to constantly say, okay, well, what I could do a month ago, maybe I have to do it differently. And I have to learn how to be okay with that. So that's what I think the evolution of like my SMA looks like. Constant evolution, and just grace.
Mm-hmm. So many people don't understand what SMA physically feels like. If you're comfortable, you mentioned about being tired all the time. Um, can you talk about the muscle weakness, fatigue, and uh, that shows up in your disease, in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I would say I see it, you know, just almost in like the little things like typing. I used to be able to type so fast, so quickly. And now I got to take it a little bit slower. I even notice I'm using more voice to text options to kind of save my arm and finger energy for other things down the road in the day that I might need. I'm just more conscious of how I exert my energy because I know I only have so much. And the best way I could try to explain it is imagine a glass full of milk or water,
Mm-hmm.
and that water represents energy for the day. When I was 18 and I was young and had all the energy that I thought I could have, and I think that cup was maybe at its best 2/3 full compared to a able-bodied person with no rare disease, no SMA. That cup is full strength water with powerful electrolytes. And now at 40, that glass for me is at 1/3 full, and that's at my best. That would be a great day to have 1/3 full strength energy compared to probably an able-bodied person at 40. That glass is probably maybe closer between the 2/3, 1/3 area. If we're really being honest with ourselves, maybe 2/3 to 1/3 area. That's their best.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to navigate life with 1/3 of that energy. And that's at my best. Now imagine if I wake up and it's been a night of pain, chronic nerve pain, or I didn't, you know, where I only got 2 hours of sleep,
Mm-hmm.
or if I just came out of the hospital and I'm sick, it's gonna take me longer to recover.
Mm-hmm.
Before it might have took me 3, 4 days. Now it takes me maybe 2 weeks. So, you know, I just have to constantly remind myself and others that your full strength, I'm working with probably 2/3 less than what you have, and I got to make it work throughout the whole day. And probably by the time I eat breakfast and check my emails, I'm exhausted. So I have to stop and recharge and keep doing it. When before, 18-year-old Candace, 25-year-old Candace, 35-year-old Candace, that recovery time was a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I would describe it. That muscle weakness is the everyday things. Putting on lipstick,
Mm-hmm.
losing that ability to lift my arms up to put on the lipstick. When I'm a girly girl, so I've been putting on makeup since I could sneak into my mother's bathroom. So,
Yeah.
to lose that ability, even for a day, even for a second, imagine being on a date and wanting to reapply your lipstick and you can't. Like, that's a simple thing to some people, but to me, in that moment, that's another sign that my disability is taking something from me, my independence. And I have to rationalize my emotions in those moments and play it off like, oh, there's nothing. I just took this lipstick out for no reason. Let me put it back in my purse and to not look like a crazy person. Like, those are the things that go through my head.
Mm-hmm.
That's what SMA looks like as it progresses for me.
Mm-hmm. I like your analogy of the milk better than spoon theory, which is the other way people explain a lot. Um, so feeding nutrition can be a big part of SMA. Uh, the management. What has your experience been with energy levels, GI issues, and um, maintaining stamina?
Um, you know, I would say this is a weird iffy topic for me because with me, I grew up in a Black house with comfort foods like fried chicken and macaroni. And, you know, I also grew up with a rare disability, a rare disease, which limited the way that I could exercise, which limited the way that I could move my body. And I picked on weight quite quickly as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my life, I was on diets because it was very clear that we had to maintain my weight so that I wouldn't pick up weight because I obviously couldn't work off the weight. And that has been my relationship with food since I could eat. And up until recently, I was realizing a new evolution of my body. I found it difficult to pick up my arms to feed myself. And because of this, I drastically lost a lot of weight, and I noticed that now I'm at this weight and now I need to maintain a healthy diet. And I find that having SMA making it difficult to feed myself independently is challenging. Um, and then when I had a surgery that caused me to have a urostomy, and that messed with my GI tract and all of that. And like now I have this new stomach and I'm trying to learn how to navigate that. So I think I just try to take it one day at a time, having a new relationship with food and weight and having a new relationship with my body and my stomach. Um, I think it's just trying to take it one day at a time and, having a better relationship with myself. So I just try to make sure that I eat enough to maintain because as we all know, you have to fuel your body. So I try to make smart decisions instead of picking up chips, which I love. I love chips.
Mm.
Anyone knows me, chips are like everything to me. So instead of picking up chips, I will eat an apple.
Mm.
And instead of, drinking juice, which I love, I'll make a mint lemon water and just, moderation, picking and choosing when I can indulge and when I, moderate that indulgence. Because we're only here on Earth once, so at least, earthly wise, we're only here once, so we might as well try to enjoy it, but make it last, as long as we can and the healthiest way possible. So just making sure that I fuel my body with what it needs and not always what it wants. Because what it always wants is cheesecake and tacos, and that's just not healthy.
Yeah.
So we have to make better choices.
So, how has mobility and independence evolved for you over time?
Well, like as I've said, just showing the weakness throughout my body, my muscles, that's really, attacked my independence. Um, and I say attack, I use that purposely because at times it feels like your body is attacking you. I wake up sometimes and I'm like, are we liking each other today? Are we in one accord
Yeah.
today? Are you upset at me, girl? Like, what's going on? Um, and then some days, we're twinsies. So, um, it's just taking it one day at a time. But I notice as far as some of the things I've lost or, notice accessible housing, finding, things that are gonna work for me long term. When you're looking at housing, you have to look at everything. When I was more independent, when I had more ability, more strength, I didn't look at, certain things like what floor the building was on and the type of flooring I had, the counter height. I didn't look at all the things that I would need to make adjustments to. Now I do. Um, Purchasing a vehicle. For so long I rode public transportation, still ride public transportation. Now the evolution is I don't know if that's the safest thing for me. I think being now the weaker I am, I think it'll be better to be in a car. So now I take Ubers and Lyfts, use more access, to paratransit services, because I don't necessarily feel strong enough to withstand some of the jerks and the pulls on public transportation that I used to. And I mean, I used to. I would be on every line, train, bus. I knew them like the back of my hand. That's how I got around my city. And now that's not really an option that I feel physically safe for. So those are some of the adjustments I'm making. They're expensive adjustments. I'm not happy about them. But, it's life. You gotta evolve. With your disability comes different evolutions of that. Um, I'll notice that when I, have to hire my PCAs to help me, they have to help me with a lot more now. So those are just the things that I noticed. I require a little bit more assistance. Um, and just realizing that it's okay. I think just telling myself it's okay.
So, do you use the Hoyer lift?
No, not traditionally, no.
Mm.
I have a little, Hoyer lift takes so long. I'm so impatient. By the time the Hoyer lift cranks down, cranks up, you roll it out, crank it. I could have slid over with a sliding board.
Hmm.
So I have been sliding into wheelchairs with the assistance of a PCA for over 20, maybe 30 some years. And I'm sure one day I'll have to get a Hoyer. But I live in the city and we have storage concerns. I don't have a walk-in closet. I don't know where I'm gonna put that Hoyer lift, and it's not gonna be in my living room. So, and maybe when I buy a house, I'll have a Hoyer lift when I can strategically hide it in another guest room.
Yeah, people don't know this, but you can actually get ceiling Hoyer lifts.
I
And so
know
then,
I want that. I want that with a passion. I have been dreaming of that since I was a little girl. I heard about it in the 90s, and I like
mm,
rich people had them. And I have been dreaming of a ceiling Hoyer lift, and I promise you, I will know I have made it when I can get one. I'm gonna get there though.
so I do have Medicaid.
No,
So yeah, a lot of people, if they're on Medicaid or Medicare, they also can, which you would probably qualify for. You
maybe I should
can,
look into this.
yeah, then you can get, they will pay for one piece of equipment a year, and so
Mm,
that would be the most important one for you to get.
tell me, yeah, this is, and maybe that's just, I want to highlight this being that it is Black History Month. Um, I heard about that when I
Mhm.
was a little girl, and it sounded so mythical, but I knew because I knew that was something that was not available to me. I
Mhm.
knew financially it was not available. The fact that I even heard of it was crazy because most people don't even hear of those things.
Yeah,
But as a
it's
Black
like,
kid, I didn't have resources available to me like that.
mhm. Yeah, Medicaid is financial, but it is a has a financial limit. Medicare doesn't. Medicare only is required. You got to get, you got to have your medical records. They look all the way through. Um, I'm on Medicare myself because of a stroke, but
Yeah,
uh,
and I'm sure that they would offer that. I think that what I'm trying to highlight is even if it's available to you, some people have never even heard of it to ask for it. Even
mhm,
myself, I don't even know the proper ways to be for it to be available. I think
mhm.
that's the lack of the education and resources to everyone is what I'm trying to show is yes,
Mhm.
I heard of it. I would love to get it. Maybe one day I can and learn how to navigate that, but yeah, not everyone has those opportunities.
So yeah, if you do you have a case manager?
Yeah, well, yes, I do. Currently in
Yeah.
appeal, but yes, I do.
So yeah, especially if you go through DHS, they should know about these things. But I know a lot of people go through the agencies also, and they
But don't you
pay
have to
better
have
for
a
the.
home for it? Or
No, you don't.
oh,
I
okay.
I work as a PCA and a home care worker, and not, almost none of my patients are in houses. They're
Okay.
almost all of them are in apartments.
Hmm, okay.
I may have had one or two in house, but with a lot of the, I mean, most of the Hoyer lifts I've seen are either electronic or crank, and so
Yeah.
they those do require bigger space. And
Yes. And
I
yeah.
may have seen one or two of them. One of them had like a mobile area. She had a stand to sit Hoyer, which was kind of neat. I had never seen those before, but they do exist. And they she had MS, um, but there was one of them who stored it in her bathroom. It was big enough to fit in her bathroom. Um,
I wonder if
and
she liked it in her bathroom though. I mean, because we have to
yeah,
also remember. I'm a girly girl. I want it to
Yeah.
look nice, you know. I always advocate for, accessibility doesn't need to look sterile and ugly and medical. We gotta make it look fashionable. So I always love the idea of ceiling Hoyer lifts and things like that because make it aesthetically nice too. That's something that I feel should be available to people. And I think you make a valid point. A lot of these Hoyer lifts and things of that nature are installed in apartments. And so I think we should take note of that, that can be seen as a reasonable accommodation oftentimes. But if people don't know that or don't know how to advocate for that, and they think they have to own a home or have to have a private residence, educating people on that is so powerful because I didn't know that, I thought I would have to have a private residence. And maybe there is a way that you can get a ceiling Hoyer with other accommodations. So
Yeah.
I think it's also just always good to highlight that, in the medical and in the medical field, you don't always know how to advocate and what to advocate for,
Hmm.
especially when you're a person of color. It can
Yeah.
be very confusing and disheartening. So if you can find a way to understand it, pass on that knowledge. So I'm so happy that you passed that on to me because I'm for sure going to bother my case managers about it now.
Hmm. Yeah, it might help to bring video footage or pictures of them because those are available on YouTube and other places
Oh,
also.
I'm like a dog with a bone. It's gonna happen now.
Yeah. So, what do you wish people understood about the invisible aspect of SMA?
Hmm. Man, I wish that they understood that I'm exhausted 24/7, just trying to keep up, just trying to keep up. And do I need to keep up? Sometimes it feels like I shouldn't have to, but I live in a society that
Mm,
says if I don't keep up, I'm a burden and I'm not worth your tax dollars. So I think it looks weird to them when I say I'm disabled, but I still want to work, or I'm disabled and I still want to have a thriving life, because that's contradictory. That's contradictory. How can you be disabled and still want to live a thriving life? How is that possible? So
yeah.
that's what I wish they could see, that disability, that SMA, that the invisibleness of my disability in that moment does not it does not devalidate
Mm,
my disability as a whole. I can be tired 1 minute and happy 1 minute and be in chronic nerve spasms in the same moment. And I'm having to handle that while someone's in the middle of small talk with me at an event.
mhm.
That's what that looks like. So I just wish that people would give grace and see that you can be two things at once.
Yeah.
Because isn't that what America is? Isn't that what we can be two, three things at once. We're not monolithic. I can be disabled and I can still be professional. I can be disabled and I can still be a leader. I can be disabled and I can still be an executive. I can be disabled and I can be a graduate honor student,
Mm,
but I'm still disabled. I'm still Black. I'm still a woman. I can be all of those things and still be extremely disabled
mm.
and still have value.
Uh, Most of what you have to be aware of is the financial aspect of if you're working. There's
I mean,
a certain amount you
yeah.
can make, and so
And I think that that's something that should be re-reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm saying. I can be disabled and still be of value to society and still need help from that same society. I'm not saying that I want to live off of that society, but as a disabled person, you should be able to still work and still be able to ask for assistance if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If I need assistance, but I also want to be a member of society and have a job and live independent, I should be able to do that without being frowned upon or it being punished.
Yeah.
But we live in a society that makes you want to choose. And if you don't choose, you're a wrecking ball. So
Yeah.
I'm a wrecking ball.
I know at least with Social Security, you have to, is what you mean, is what I mean by you have to fall under a certain income level in order to keep it from being cut or even completely eliminated. But I think a lot of that stems from the disability um, symbol being a wheelchair. And people don't understand that disabilities can be invisible also. Um, there's
You make
actually,
a good point.
yeah, the zebra is actually the symbol of a rare disease. And recently I found out the sunflower is actually a symbol
Hmm.
of invisible disabilities.
Hmm.
So I have a T-shirt that I created that has a zebra lying in sunflowers, and so uh, that's on Buzzsprout. Um,
I love that. And I think, you know, imagery is very powerful. Marketing is very powerful.
mhm,
I don't think our society knows how powerful branding and marketing is. So you are saying something very powerful when you say that the
mhm,
logo of, disability is a wheelchair. It puts such a different tone, a different possible stigma on
mhm.
that particular disability or particular mobility device. And I never thought about it like that, but that is very true. And maybe that's something that the community we need to maybe bring up or reinvigorate that conversation because words matter but symbols and how people recognize things matter.
Mhm.
So I love that you translated that into the giraffe and the sunflowers, making it more beautiful, making it
Mhm.
almost more playful and more fun and more calm,
Yeah, not
instead of
not
just
not a giraffe,
her
zebra, but yeah,
zebra.
because
Sorry, yeah,
yeah,
zebra.
because zebra is the symbol of rare diseases.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I don't have you ever if you ever took paratransit, but it's available in the states, and it's normal. A lot of times it's door to door. I know in Washington, at least, it is curb to curb, but um, Oregon, it's door to door. I know. I've never taken it in California, even though I used to live there, but I didn't find out about it until 2003. And they actually gave me last time I was there for the to for the for the testing because every 3 years you have to go back and be reevaluated. Um, they gave me a lanyard with the sunflower on, and it has a place to write down if you can't talk or something, um, what you need help with. And so I really like that.
Yeah, I heard about the sunflowers, and sunflowers happen to be my favorite flower. So I love that it's, symbolically connected to the disability community.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know about the zebra, so thank you for I
Yeah,
did not know that. I wonder, is it because zebras are rare? Is that why?
right. That's why because it's also because of the striping. Um, the zebra, um, this every stripe is individual. All the stripes are individual, so it's it. That's why.
Oh,
So there's actually a famous saying from one of the doctors. This also points out the medical community, but um, if you hear hoofbeats, think horse, not zebra. Horses are common, zebras aren't. And so
well, you
uh,
said if you hear horse hooves,
if you hear hoofbeats, think horse, not zebra,
okay.
which is a lot of why the common conditions are more popular are you know more talked about in the medicine.
I'm
And
definitely gonna have to get something zebra in my house. I did not
yeah,
know about the zebra, but and I did not know about the stripes. I love anything that's symbolic. So thank you.
yeah. um every year around this time of year, also every Life Foundation has something in DC where you can talk to your politicians about different bills that are effective. Every Life Foundation, their DC conference is probably the most um, visible um, aspect of the rare disease community. I mean, every year they fill up 4 flights of stairs and counting. So it's with all rare disease patients for a picture. Um, see, SMA has several FDA approved treatments, including gene therapy. Uh, what has your experience been navigating treatment landscape?
I would say that I was very slow to it. Like I said, my background, being raised in a Black household, there was less talk about what can we do to change or fix, and I'm using those words in quotes, fix you, you're going to pray about it
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be grateful for life. And I mean, all of that is true. But there was no conversation about clinical trials or anything like that. I didn't have that conversation until I was 38 and I was
Mm-hmm.
at a conference and I met a woman that changed the trajectory of how I saw my disability and life going from that point. Um, she just really opened my eyes to the fact that, yes, it's different. Yes, it's something that is foreign to me, but there's no harm in just looking into it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think had she forced me, pushed me, I'm almost like I'm stubborn, very stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
So had it been forced, had I felt like it was a sales pitch, I would have been turned off immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But she came to me in a very comforting way and introduced me to the different options that were available in clinical trials. And it took me about a year after that of me going to different local, like disabled or disability events in my community, and asking people, like, hey, have you heard of this thing? Have you heard of this drug? Have you heard of this? Oh, you're on it? What does it make you do? How does it make you feel? I mean, I was talking to people on trains. I met a friend on the train that was going through a similar procedure, and I said, oh, well, how do you like it? And I mean, I did my due diligence, and I was just asking people, and I still was uneasy. And then I finally went to my doctor and got resistance.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, oh, well, this is odd. And so I went back to the woman that introduced me to it and said, I think I might be interested, but now the medical the medical piece of this is causing a block. And when I did not stop pursuing it, I changed my insurance. I changed the insurance that I had been on all my life for 30 plus years. And I said, if I want to see something different happen in my medical journey, I need to do something drastic. And so in my advocacy moment, I said, all right, are you going to stick to what you know? Or are you going to pursue something that it might be a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a mistake. Or it could be the most beautiful decision I made. And I changed my insurance, and it's been the best decision I've ever made is to, really open my mind to clinical trials and, modern medicine and what can really help prolong the happiness in
Mm-hmm.
my life. Because everyone says, you want to prolong your life, but you don't want to prolong it if you're in constant pain and sadness. You want to prolong a life that's filled with joy and happiness. So this gave me the opportunity to still live a happy, thriving life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of people don't know there's global clinical trials also, which is the last episode I just did. Um, and sometimes I was told they will pay you for some of the travel costs also, which is
Oh, wow.
um, it depends on the sponsor and how rare the condition is, but it's because they're in desperate need for people for these trials. I'm on a clinical
Which
trial now.
that is something that I need to be more open to. Like I said, I'm very new to this. So
Mm,
we need modern medicine to do these trials so that we can have better futures in medicine and better outcomes. So we
mm,
do need people to volunteer and, provide their acts of service. So
mm,
I'm trying to get more used to the fact of, I'm trying to open my mind to being more open to trials. Um, I think for me, it's a slow build. I never wanna, I'm okay with making some, adaptations that may help me continue a healthy life, but I also want to maintain the fact that this is the body that God gave me. And so I want to honor that in the best way possible. So I don't know, I guess it's a seesaw of how much do I how much do I try to change and how much do I love, because this body has gotten me through 40 years and she's not too shabby. So
mm,
I don't know. I think the more I learn and educate myself on clinical trials, I'll be more open to it. But I'm very happy that I allowed myself to do this and to be open to it for this
mm.
purpose. Because it's really changed my life.
Yeah. So I know you can only be on one drug at a time with the clinical trials, but there's different trials have different amounts of time in between those trials that you can um, have. Probably also varies by location. There are certain most of um, what goes on with clinical trials is international. There's very few differences, but the international laws with clinical trials have been around since World War II. So
Mm.
it's, um, but the paperwork is what varies a little bit. Um, and because I've talking to two people who do clinical trials, and so and there's one on drugs also. Um, the you can go to there's actually an ongoing trial for SMA right now. You can go to clinicaltrials.gov to find out about it. but I see it circulating on my Facebook page quite a lot.
Nice.
Um, for families, early access makes a huge difference. What are your thoughts on newborn screening and how timing affects outcomes?
I think I mean, for myself, I would definitely pursue early screening, early testing. I would definitely pursue that. I think, in my opinion, it doesn't change. It educates how I move forward. The more you know, the better you can do. So if you have a head start on knowing what might be there or what might be approaching, I think why not? But for others, they feel differently. Like my parents, I mean, early detection wasn't really. I don't believe early detection was available, but I do believe there was an opportunity for them to do like some type of screening or testing, and they opted out of it, basically saying like we don't need to have that. And they basically were saying like that doesn't change, how we are going to move forward. So I think like if you are able to do it and it aligns with, your parenting style, and why not? We've been asking for medical advances, so this is one. Why not? Um, but for others, they don't want to, and I respect that as well. I mean, to each his own, but I think if we have it, like, why not?
So, do you feel the general public understands how critical early diagnosis is? And
No, I don't.
yeah,
I feel like they don't have an idea of that. I feel like that's something that maybe should be a part of, new parenting, new your checkups. I think that should be a part of how our healthcare system, helps and supports, their patients. Because you don't always know what to ask. You don't know what to look for.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I think, having conversations like this where people can hear it and start asking questions. You know, when you stop asking questions, that's the beginning of your demise. So having platforms like this where you can talk about, clinical trials and, early detection and screenings, we need that.
but you you start your career in the entertainment industry. Uh, what drew you to that space originally?
I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up listening to, you know, music and watching, like I said, Janet Jackson and,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jackson. And I just was fascinated. I was a little mini child star. I did a couple commercials and did a little acting. So entertainment always intrigued me. Like I told you, I always talked. I was a big talker, big, ham in front of the camera. So I was just like intrigued. I did not want to do anything admin office related. Even in high school, I was very much, when kids were like destroyed over their SAT scores and, frantic about what school they were going to get into, I was very clear. I was going to like a musical school. I was always a creative kid. So entertainment just seemed like a good fit. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I did not want to do anything office admin. I grew up with a family that was, you know, they grew up working for the local government. We are a family of public servants, and proud of that. my mother worked 40 plus years for Los Angeles County, so she is a public servant to the fullest. But I did not want to be that.
Mm.
I wanted to be in entertainment. I would tell my mother for days and days, I do not want to work in an office. I want to be on the red carpet. So when it was time to pursue a lane, I said, I want to be on the stage. I want to be doing something fun.
Mm.
So I started interning out of college. Um, I had like two, three internships a semester because
Mm.
in the entertainment industry, you could get an internship that would be maybe a month long and it would be like project based. So
Mm.
I was seeking internships all the time and I fell in love with it. It was different. And what was also different was being disabled and trying to navigate the entertainment world in Los Angeles in the early 2000s and mid 2000s as a Black woman. I will say that was a different experience. And I think the fact that I thought it never dawned on me that I couldn't go and pursue the entertainment industry. It never dawned on me that I couldn't be what I wanted to be. I just had to work harder.
Mm.
I knew I was going to be up against a long road of, resistance. The entertainment industry is very vain. It's all
Mm.
about beauty and what it looks like and who you know. And here I am, this, chubby Black girl in a wheelchair, a power wheelchair at that. No car,
Mm.
and I live in Los Angeles. And anyone who knows, LA is a car culture city. So you don't have a car, and then you're trying to get into these fancy, I'm trying to intern with these fancy, places. Um, I was delusional. I was magnificently delusional. But that delusion led me to not say no, not give up. When they told me no, I said, all right, I'll go a different way. Um, but I was definitely a unicorn. You
Mm.
didn't see me. You didn't see me in the entertainment industry. You didn't see a Black girl in a wheelchair that was a powerhouse. You didn't see that until you saw me. So I think the delusion for me to think that I could navigate the industry and then the actuality that I did still kind of throws me for a loop. But I just wanted something different. I wanted to love what I did.
Mm.
And I didn't think I'd see that in an office job. Go
Yeah.
figure.
At what point did you realize the entertainment world wasn't going to work? It wasn't going to line with your long-term goals
Um,
or health needs?
I think that the reality hit me when I was working as a assistant for a celebrity at the time. And I realized I could no longer give my all because I had to start caring about my own body, my
Mm.
own health needs. I needed insurance that was stable. I could no longer keep working both industries, working the entertainment industry and then also working at a regular 9 to 5 in the public sector. I couldn't keep doing that. Um, I needed to pick, and boy, was it hard. It was not a choice that I wanted to make. Um, I had worked so hard to make a name for myself in the industry. I had gotten through so many barriers. I'd earned respect. That's
Mm,
hard to come by in the industry. Respect is hard to come by in life, but especially in the industry. Um, and anyone that knows, when you've worked in the industry, when you've earned that respect and you've earned it, it's hard
mm,
to walk away from that. So when I realized that my disability was not going to align with the entertainment industry's hours, it wasn't going to align with my body and what it needed, my health and what it needed. And like I said, I needed a stable check. I needed a stable insurance. And the entertainment industry wasn't gonna give me that. So I decided that I needed to just fully focus on working my government job. And I did not like it in the beginning. It took me a while to kind of evolve to, like I said, I had to almost have like a little mini funeral for that life that I wasn't going to be leading, because I was no longer going to be on red carpets. I was no longer going to be doing that. I was no longer going to be rubbing noses with celebrities and things like that. And when you're young, and I mean, I was like 20, 25, 27, 30. When you're young, you're going to events and working celebrity parties, and that's fun. That's not an office job.
mm,
That's hard to walk away with. And then people say, "Why are you leaving?" Oh, because I need to make sure I have insurance so I can make sure I have stable income so I can pay for my health care and my needs. That's not fun to say.
mm,
So just kind of mourning the loss of a career that I thought I was meant to have, that was hard to do. But very necessary, because there's no one more important than myself and my health. And so just realizing that it's okay to pivot.
mm. So, where did you choose to go between the two? I mean,
Oh,
you
well,
said you had to make a choice.
yeah, I chose working in the public sector and going full government. And from there, I basically said, okay, you don't want to do just office work. You don't want to work. And one thing I didn't want to do was HR. I did not want to work in HR. And I did not want to just do mundane office work.
Hmm.
I knew that I was meant to do something. I'm here for a purpose. So
Yeah.
I pursued different departments within our local government and city government, and did that for about 15 years. I think that people tend to forget that I look young, but I am 40, so I've been working for decades, and putting in my time. I didn't make it to an executive overnight. It feels like it sometimes, but I remember those nights and those years and those decades working many hours. So I just decided to continue to work and continue to find what I wanted to pursue. And I started to see that disability was not called out in government spaces. When it wasn't called out in the work culture, it wasn't really called out with reasonable accommodations. It was very taboo, hush hush. It was kind of like, if we don't talk about it, you don't talk about it. And I didn't like that, because I was a Black girl in the government spaces that needed help and saw others that needed help. And we were just kind of hushed and silent. So
Hmm.
I said, okay, well, if I'm going to be here, maybe that's my purpose. Maybe I need to highlight or bring awareness to some of the inequities that I see within the disabled community, within the intersection of race and disability, and nobody was doing it. And that's when it hit home, and I said, this is what I'm supposed to do on this earth. This is what fills my cup up, is really being a voice and advocate for the disabled community in all the spaces that I enter, whether that be the entertainment spaces, whether that be, going to a different event in downtown LA, or maybe that's going to an office building, maybe that's going to a board meeting, a city council meeting. But I wanted to highlight that we needed to make some changes. And with the resurgence, I like to say, of DEI, which has been around forever, they started posting positions at, my place of employment for these roles. And I just started applying. And when I got into DEI, I started to see again a gap in accessibility. And so I started bringing that to the forefront and focusing on DEIA, and started providing trainings, doing speaking engagements, and really bringing inequities and how we call them out and how we readjust our mindsets. I started really calling that out, which led me to my most recent role, which was Chief Equity Officer for the state of California's Department of Rehab. And I wouldn't have made it to that level had I not left the entertainment industry, pivoted, and moved over to public service, and really focused on that. And I'm so happy I did, because that's where I think voices need to be heard the most within our systems, our medical systems, our housing systems. It's all fun and games when you can, watch a football game, or you can go to a football game, or you can go to a fancy event. That's fun and games. But disability affects you every day when you can't get to your local bus stop, when you can't find local transportation, when you can't find accessible housing, when you can't get a job. That is when I see disability really affecting people, and not when they can't get into a one-off party. It affects them every day when they can't get to their local supermarket, or they can't get access to care. So I wanted to be a part of the solution to that. I want to be a part of seeing the solutions to systematic change. So I'm so happy that I did pivot, because this is where I'm supposed to be.
That's what I like about places, companies like the nonprofits like Every Life Foundation and Global Genes really do a lot with for the rare disease community. But especially Every Life Foundation will sometimes pay for you to go to DC. There's also things that they do locally with in one of the politicians are in your local offices also. So what does DEIA stand for?
Diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility.
Because I never heard the term before. No.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty popular term now. But yeah, that's been my focus for almost, I would say, all my life. That's my life's work. It's my life's work. Everything else in between is kind of like, oh, I did that for fun, but this is my life's work. It's really being a voice for people of color, people within the disabled community that are trying to live everyday lives. Everyday lives is what you remember, how difficult it was to get access to care.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you remember. You remember how difficult it was to get to the train stop because of the path of travel. So this is my life's work, to uplift the inequities that are within our community, our culture, our workplaces. Because yes, it's fun to go to a concert and have it be accessible and have amazing ASL performers and, great. But when you come home, is it accessible? When you go to your doctor's office, is it accessible? When you're looking for care, can you find it? Or are you hit with isms? Are you hit with systematic barriers? So that's what my life's work is. And I will continue to do that with passion, fatigue, dry eyes, no sleep. I will do it because if I'm not, what representation will the next generation have? I didn't have that representation. I didn't see people of, my color with a disability on TV or advocating in, courtrooms and workplaces. I didn't see that. So
Mm-hmm.
I will be that for generations to follow. Because if you don't have a roadmap, you don't know what road to take.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Were there moments that in that industry that pushed you toward advocacy, shaped what you wanted to change?
Well, yeah, I definitely working in government offices and government spaces, public spaces. You have to learn how to advocate and also do it professionally, also do it with tact, because a loud screaming voice will not get heard. It just won't. So it's taught me how to advocate with intention and purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there and I got that because it wasn't available to me. I got hit with so much discrimination and in your face microaggressions. Oh my goodness, the things that I've had to deal with. And I did it not knowing what I was really, I guess, taking in.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to work. I was just trying to pay my rent. I was just trying to go to school. I was just trying to have a life. And
Mm-hmm.
when you're a person of color with a disability, that can be difficult. When you're not a person of color and have a disability, that can be difficult. I just happen to be bold enough to come out and say, we need to do better.
Mm-hmm. So, what inspired you to step into that leadership space?
Into leadership,
Right.
um, hmm, I would say I don't think I strive for leadership. I strive to get my voice heard. You
Mm-hmm.
just only can get your voice heard if you're in the leadership roles. That's how our society is set up.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, I didn't want to be in corporate America. I didn't want to be in office work. So I didn't strive to be a leader in that aspect. No. I just refused to take no for an answer. I just wanted my voice heard.
Yeah.
And to do that, I was told, well, you got to be in that room to get heard, or you got to be at that level to get heard. Oh, okay. So that means I got to promote. Okay. Oh, that means I gotta go back to school. Okay. And I'm gonna do it. And I just happened to do it within a quick time. And I found myself at the executive level in our state government at the age of 40. And I was sitting in a room where I was one of the only people of color. And even in that room, I said, okay, you're here. What are you going to say? What are
Mm.
you going to say? Because now you're here. What you say matters. So that's how I found myself in leadership. It wasn't because no one grows up and says they want to be a chief equity officer. Nobody says, you know what I grew up saying I wanted to be? I wanted to be a gymnast. I wanted to be a figure skater because I used to watch the Olympics with my grandmother. And I wanted to be a singer.
Mm.
That's what I wanted to be, not a chief equity officer. No. But the
Mm.
chief equity officer puts me in the room that allows my voice to be heard, where policy can change, where mindsets can change. So here I am.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always fun to watch the gymnasts because it's something I wish I could do because I have a rod in my back. It's kind of impossible for me to bend that way, but um, I I love watching them. Them
Yeah,
do
I
them
I
just
still watch them.
yeah.
You know,
Uh,
I used to want to be a gymnast and a figure skater. Like
yeah.
8-year-old Candace would tell you, what are you gonna be when you grow up? I want to be a figure skater. I thought figure skating was like the cool, and I still think it is. I think it's the coolest thing ever. I did not tell people I wanted to be a leader in office management and be an executive. That was my
Mhm.
mother. That was my mother. My mother was that, and I wanted to be something that was completely different. I wanted to be in entertainment.
Yeah, acting
So,
seemed like a perfect role for you. It's from what I hear about you as a child.
and I think my mother and my family and my friends would agree. But that just tells you what you are purposely aligned to do will find you if you allow it. Because I was
Mm.
pursuing something completely different. And what's even more confusing is I was good. It's
Mm.
different when you pursue something that might not be your purpose and you might not be so good at it. So it's kind of like, oh, go back to what you know. But no, I was good. I
Mm.
was good. I was well liked. I was well sought. So I had no reason to stop.
Mhm.
But sometimes you got to move with how your life is supposed to go and where you're supposed to be. Not always what you want, sometimes
Mm.
where you need to be.
So, what gaps did you see in the disability representation that motivated you to start I am disabled, I am abled incorporated?
I think the gaps that I saw was from the ages of 0 to 18, the medical and disabled community has a good way of uplifting and helping. But when you turn 18, and from 18 till about 55, 60, they drop you,
Mm.
in my opinion. They drop you. And you are kind of like a goldfish flopping in and out of water, trying to figure it out. You're trying to figure out this new medical system that now sees you as an adult. And if you're in school, you're trying to advocate for your educational edification and rights and benefits. If you're trying to live an independent life, you're trying to find accessible housing. If you're trying to just live, you're trying to afford groceries and medical bills, and they drop you. They don't give you a roadmap. They don't tell you how to navigate this thing called life with a disability. They don't tell you what to expect. And I created I Am Able because I wanted to create a safe space for people with disabilities to be able to come and gain insight, help, support, whether that be transitioning from high school to college or high school to moving out of your parents' house. You know, I wanted to be able to show that. I wanted to be able to show that maybe you want to go to community college, maybe you want to go to a four-year college. I
Mm.
wanted to show that. I wanted to bring people together that could be mentors and provide guidance to people that were seeking this. I wanted to train other industries on how to talk and, relate to people with disabilities, how to function in society with us because we're not foreign, we're a part of society. That's what I Am Able really stood for because that wasn't available.
Mm.
Remember, I had to go through college,
Mm.
high school, junior high. I had to go through all of that without that representation. That did not exist for me. I did not have that. There was none of
Mm.
that for me. I know what it feels like to be 18, and I know what it feels like to not know what to do, not know how to be disabled in America because they don't want you to be. They want you to go away. They want you to disappear.
Mm.
And I said, no, if you're not going to show me, then I'll figure it out. And now that I've kind of gotten to my age, I've gotten a little wisdom under my belt. Why not share that so that the next person that wants to try it out, maybe they can gain some insight? I Am Able is supposed to be a safe space where you can learn, grow, be mentored, and still live a thriving life as a disabled person. I want people to know that you can still live a nice, amazing, thriving, passion filled, purpose filled life with your disability. Because why not? You're here.
Mm.
Wouldn't you rather enjoy it? Like, try, at least try. You have to fight for it. It's gonna be hard.
Mm.
You're gonna have to fight for that happiness. And I wish that our world wouldn't make us fight for it so hard. But maybe with different laws, different policy changes, that fight won't be as hard in the next 10 years.
Can you share the mission of I Am Able? The type of trainings or programs you've built?
Yeah, I provide disability awareness and trainings on language, on how to navigate within the workplace, accessibility, reasonable accommodations. I also provide mentor services, kind of helping people transition. I provide job skills, resume skills. So it's just a place where you can really come to gain support if you're looking to make that transition from, I've been doing things one way, now I want to try maybe living independent. I want to try maybe looking for a roommate, getting an apartment, going to school, taking a class, anything that makes you feel like you want to try something different. I Am Able is here to make that transition a little bit easier, whether that be through social engagement, mentor, trainings, consults. That's what I'm here to provide.
Mm. So how do you live? How does your lived experience with SMA influence the work you do today in the DEIA accessibility?
I would say that SMA is the blueprint for my life's work. I am the blueprint for my life's work. What what makes me me, and educating people that this is okay. This is a different type of normal. Like I always love to see the expression on people's faces when they say, "Oh, so you've worked?" "Yes."
Mm.
"Oh, and you're disabled?" "Yes." "And you went to school?" And you got a degree? I love to see those expressions because I
Yeah.
am blowing your mind the fact that I can be disabled and still function. It's blowing your mind that I can be disabled and have intelligence. It's blowing your mind that I can be disabled and sit on a board and talk about politics and reform. It's blowing your mind. And I'm gonna keep blowing your mind until
Yeah.
your mind is no longer set in the old ways of how you view disability and accessibility. I'm gonna blow your mind.
You have an incredible line. Whether I roll into a room or walk into it, then you'll remember me. Um, can you talk about what the statement means to you?
I mean, it's pretty much, yeah, whether I roll or walk into this place, which basically means it doesn't matter how I come in here.
Mm,
I could come in here with no feet, one foot, one arm, no arm. So whether I roll or walk, you will remember me
mm,
because I'm that I'm that I'm just that. You're gonna remember me. I'm that girl. I'm that girl. You're gonna remember me.
So has it
And
shaped? No.
no,
Mm,
and I would say that it shaped the way that I live my life because I have to leave a lasting impression. My wheelchair can't.
mm,
I used to, when I used to network as a college student, I used to say, "Oh, I'm Candace, the girl in the wheelchair that you met," because that would be how I would single myself out. Because I highly doubt that you met another person named Candace that was in a wheelchair, while we were talking about scholastic aspirations. So that would be how I would single myself out. And
mm,
they would always say, "Oh, Candace, yes, I remember you." But I stopped doing that and started just saying, "Hi, this is Candace. I met you last week and we discussed such and such." And they still had the same response because I'm that girl. You're going to remember me whether I walked in here or I rolled in here. You're going to remember me because why wouldn't you not? I'm amazing.
mm. What message um, do you hope people, especially young disabled individuals, um, take from your story?
I hope that I think that I've always prayed that when somebody maybe is feeling down or maybe feeling like they don't know which way to go, they're having a moment of despair,
Mm,
that something I said or something that I did reminds them that it might really suck right now. Like it might really suck really, really bad right now. But it sucked for her too.
mm,
But somehow she got through the suck and she's able to have a better day or a better experience. I want someone to see that I got through the suck and they can too. Because I'm not gonna lie to you and say it's not gonna suck. I'm not gonna I'm just not. Why would I do that? It's gonna suck. There are gonna be days when you were tired, when somebody tried you, when somebody said something to you, when it could be your own family, your own doctors. It could be your own partner. It could be a stranger in the street. It's gonna suck sometimes, but you get through it. And you want to get through it so that the person behind you knows that, oh, it gets better. Because if we don't get through the suck, you realize we're just in the sucky part. You got to push through. So you got to get through the sucky, nasty, the horrible part to get to the rainbow. So I want someone to see that my sucky parts didn't didn't erase the good that life can give. That my sucky parts didn't take my joy. That my sucky parts of life didn't make me want to give up. It made me want to push forward so that I could talk about the amazing times I've had in Mexico, or when I went to Spain and got to see, all these amazing sights and architecture, or when I was in Turks and Caicos having a beer on the beach, waiting for my cruise ship to dock. Like that, those are the moments that you want to talk about. When I got to work a red carpet with some of my favorite celebrities, but I had to get through the sucky part to get there.
Mm.
So know that it's gonna suck,
Yeah.
but you can get through it.
Uh,
And I think people in the medical field are scared to say that.
mm.
Even parents are scared to tell their children that. And I get it. So you don't have to tell them. I'll tell them. It's gonna suck. But it's okay. We'll get through it.
So how do you stay grounded and motivated while living with a progressive condition like SMA?
To be honest, it's my faith, my belief in God, and having family and friends that I can lean on, that even in my sucky days will be like, get up, not today. And I still have those moments presently where I might have to have my friends be like, girl, okay, you had a day. Let's watch some TV and get through it. And tomorrow's a new day. I still need those friends. I still need my tribe. So I think my faith in God and my family, and just always remember it gets better. It gets better later. No, it's greater later. That's the saying that I've heard. It's greater later. So when you're 20 and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life, compared to when you're 40 and you're still trying to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life, you just take it day by day. And I'm looking forward to the greater. I'm looking forward to continuing to live some amazing, amazing life moments.
So, what advice would you give to families who have just received the new SMA diagnosis?
I would say to a family, stay grounded in unconditional love, that nothing is going to overshadow that. The love you give to your child or your partner, unconditional. You have to remain rooted in that because love will conquer everything. And then also just remembering that it's gonna take time to adjust. Take that time. During that time, educate yourself. Find your local resources and find your state resources and also find your federal resources. They are at every level. And I say that even not knowing all of what's available still to me because it's
Mm.
forever changing. And then find your community and make sure it's a local community, whether it's
Mm.
online or local within your community where you can drive to, but make sure it's local enough where you can tap in when you need to on a frequent basis. It can't be something that's so far, far, beyond the reach. You have to be able to tap into your community. And then just knowing that you got to be patient. SMA requires patience. It's not a fast disease. So be patient and give yourself grace and fight hard. You gotta fight. Anybody with SMA has to understand that fight is internal. It's never external. It's internal. It's a mental fight. But you gotta be ready to fight.
What's something you okay, just so what's something you wish medical providers and understood about the emotions, emotional side of SMA?
I don't think I mean this is my opinion, but I don't think doctors really care about the emotional side of SMA. I don't think doctors care about the emotional side of a lot of things.
Hmm.
But they're not wired to. So I don't hold that against them.
Yeah.
I think I would probably charge them with don't look at me just as patient 101, patient room 2, patient room 3.
Hmm.
Like, come in with it as I'm a human being. I don't care that you've probably seen 30 patients in the ED and that you came upstairs and now got to see 30 more. I don't care. I don't care, and neither should you. You're my doctor at that moment. I need you to break down that wall of tiredness and fatigue that you're experiencing and be my doctor and listen to me. Yes, I might not have the medical degree that you have, but guess what? It's my body, so
Hmm.
I'm quite familiar with it. So I would charge doctors to listen. Listen to your patient, especially the ones where they do have invisible symptoms and disabilities, and listen. If you listen, you'll hear. And if you hear, you can make changes that are correct and beneficial to the patient. When you don't listen, you hear what you want to hear, and that patient suffers because they're on the wrong treatment. So listen to hear so that you can properly treat to solve issues. That's what I would ask doctors.
Hmm. So, yeah, um, listen actually has the same letters as silent. They're just reversed, and so it's um is something that a lot of people don't think about, but um, and you kind of have to be silent to listen. Um, but we always respond to ask, and so it's something we're conditioned to do a lot. But with doctors, HIPAA plays a role in that. So how would you suggest that they um, refer to you without saying bed number 5 or room number 6 or whatever?
They can use my name. That's not.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when the doctor comes in, doesn't look at you, and if you've been in the doctor's office where you've had a round of doctors come in, they come in, barely know who they're coming in to see, barely know your name, and they're just doing their rounds. That's a different experience as opposed to a doctor that comes in. You have a relationship with that doctor, they understand you, and they listen to you to actually help and
Mm.
not bill codes.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm saying. Doctors are not going to be the best at bedside manner oftentimes. They're not going to always be able to help you with your emotions, but that's not what they're there for. If you want
Mm.
someone to help you with your emotions, tap into something spiritually perhaps, call your friends, reach out to a family member, reach out to a therapist. The
Mm.
doctor might not be the person to help you with your emotions in that moment. And that's just the reality of things. They're there to provide treatment and solutions. But many doctors don't listen to help. They listen to whatever they might be hearing in their own heads.
Mm.
I'm just asking the medical industry and doctors in general to listen so that they can hear.
Mm. Yeah. Uh, I meant if you're out on a in the public world where you're in a hospital situation and you can't use a patient's name, you have to, because it's part of HIPAA. They have to protect you, and so it's part of the law, a legal situation. If they're in the room, yeah, they can refer to you by name, even though the walls are paper thin. You can hear right through them a lot of times. But I don't think they realize that, but they can. But yeah, if you're in a hospital situation where you can hear anything that goes on out on a hospital floor, they can't refer to you by name. And so, and that's just protecting your rights. Even out, and people don't realize this, but even after you die, you're still protected.
Good to know.
So, how can listeners support SMA awareness and DEIA work and your organization?
I think you can support SMA by finding your local chapters, and like we have different organizations like Cure SMA, and then you can support me by following me on my socials. My IG is thriving _on_wheels. And yeah, just, I have my website, CandisWelch.com. And that's CandisWelch.com. And yeah, that's how you can support me and find me.
As we wrap up today's conversation on spinal muscular atrophy, I hope you're walking away not only with a clear understanding of the condition, but also with a deeper appreciation for the people for the people living with it. Every single day, SMA is rare, genetic, and progressive. It is also a condition where early detection, treatment, accessible, and access, and lived experience truly shape outcomes between newborn screening, gene therapy, symptoms based on diagnosis and symptom-based diagnosis, and the daily realities of feeding strength, mobility, and stamina. No two SMA journeys look exactly alike. And that's why the voice, and that's why voices like Candace are so important here. Leadership in DEIA, her nonprofit work with I Am Abled Incorporated, and her willingness to share her lived experience help all of us understand SMA beyond the medical term. As a human story of determination, identity, and impact, if today's episode opened your eyes or gave you something to think about, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube, to this podcast, Rare Connection, and your favorite on your favorite platform. Subscribe to YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rare Chef, where I also do cooking videos, and watch the video version, which is also on the YouTube channel. Comment below the video to share what resonated with you. Audio listeners, check the show notes for a link to the send me a text link in the show notes. Thoughts or questions. And follow Rare Connection on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn for stories like this. And as always, if you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out for help. You can call or text 988, or you can also text home to 741-741. Help is always available, and you are never alone. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting Rare Voices, and thank you for helping make Rare Connection possible. I'll see you next time. I'll see you for the next episode. Thanks.